Hello friends, let's dive on into the charts and see where the weekend has taken us. This is Bitcoin Technical Analysis. I'm Rocky Outcrop. I hope you're all doing very well. And I'm aiming for 1,500 subscribers. If you hit that subscribe button, then woo, well done. Cool. So this is a CME chart that I have open behind me. Why have I got that open to begin with? Well, there's a couple of things that we were speculating along the lines of recently that I thought I'd kind of retouch on again. And that is the idea of whether or not we'll actually be making any higher highs on this chart compared to the highs that we have over here in this middle area on the 10th of August, which could be conceivably like the head of a head and shoulders if it were to fail to do so. So that's what we're still looking for on this one, and we've not managed to do any of that yet. So hey, you know, it's within touching distance. We are in an uptrend, and that would be kind of the next sort of area of significance. I think most people would kind of comprehend that anyway out of the box, so to speak. We also have a couple other things that are maybe worth looking at as well in terms of if we move downwards, down past this area at 11,280, then of course, you know, you're looking at perhaps the fulfillment of this this head and shoulders type move. The volume profile doesn't really work with it. That's true. Okay. And or the signature should maybe say instead of profile, I don't know. Looking up here though as well, you can see that we're at the sort of the you know, the top upper areas of where this right hand shoulder could be, and I think that this is fairly well denoted by this upward sloping purple line here that we have on the charts, which was kind of formerly the lower end of a rising channel on here on the CME charts, which we've actually seen the prices be dominated by so far this weekend and in the recent past in terms of our upward side resistance. So of course, moving up beyond this area into that 12,000 area, we'd be moving beyond these two things, and I think we could even look towards just a simple target rather than even doing any sorts of measured move type things to just say that we could be looking up towards the mid 12,000 area or even beyond and up towards the 13,000 depending on the timing of everything, just as sorry, excuse me, thought the door opened there, as just by this by this upward sloping part of the parallel channel. Little things that we had happen recently were the bearish divergence on the way up here, and how's that played out overall since this point? Well, we did have a pullback in the prices from that 12,000 area all the way down to the 10,000, the 11,170 area, 11,200, and that represented an 8.63% pullback in the prices. So that has happened, I suppose, and that is something. So maybe, you know, we're still in line for considering this to be healthy. Jumping up towards the 24-hour time frame, if we did come down to visit something like the 21 EMA, we'd be looking down here towards 11,170. This is the 24-hour time frame. As you can see here, there's no apparent gaps on this run up towards the top side, and we've kind of covered off all of the potential gaps that we have had on the chart since we rose up towards the 11,000 mark. There is actually, if you look down towards the lower time frame, such as the 4-hour that we started on or the 1 hour that I'm on here, just to make this more obvious, there is actually a gap sat there just in the recent past down here in this zone here, 11,700. So we're at 12,000 right now at the time of recording. So that could be, is this going to be, you know, the question is this going to be the peak of the day? Is 12,150 or 12,200 perhaps the peak of the day? Or, and if we do go towards the downside, would we find that this 11,700 area be as far as the price is needed to drop down to in order to sort of satisfy something that maybe needs to happen before moving onwards and upwards thereafter? So I'll just put a little horizontal ray in there to denote that for us so we don't forget about it. But we can just keep kind of moving on now and go on to the other charts, going to the spot prices and check in with things. If we want to, we could also consider this to be, you know, again with this rise up like we had in this one where we pointed out the bearish divergence. We could consider there to be some bearish divergence as well on the go in this most recent of rises up here on, say, the 1 hour time frame. If we dive back up again to the 4 hour time frame, then, you know, maybe you're looking at some having come in here, depending on how all this plays out. If we do actually put in a higher high than that 12,250 area, then you'd be hoping to see this kind of move on up there at some point, and, you know, but that could all be determined by all that chat that we had earlier on anyway about going up towards the 13,000 if that were to happen. Indeed, doody. Going back over to to the other charts here, there's a couple of things that we can check in with in terms of the shape of this thing. We could be calling this a ascending triangle, an ascending triangle, I suppose I should say. The top side of it is where this red line is, of course, of the Fibonacci retracement I've got there. So I can just remove that one. Really, it doesn't need to be there. And this ascending triangle on the go. So how will the prices perform in and around this area? We have a couple of clear areas to look out for that we've already spoken about from the CME perspective. If you take that premium into account, then you're looking here at 12,000 and up to that 12,100, 12,080 area for the highs, and then the lows come in here at the sort of 11,600 and 80, 11,650 area. 11,700 you could say, which is kind of ties in fairly well with the CME prices in terms of that gap and whatnot as well. So that could be where we're looking at over the next wee while. Stuff to be aware of then beyond that would be this kind of considered to be this fake out territory towards the downside if we did break out of this ascending triangle in a bearish way, all the way down to as far as 11,300. And then even beyond, if we do take out this 236 and go for the full sort of measured move off of this, then we could be looking down to 10,836. The other things that we would look at beyond that, of course, include the 618, which comes in at around about 9,950. Which would also obviously be filling in that gap on the CME charts should we need to do so. Looking at the 24-hour time frame, and I'm pointing out where we've come from then over the weekend and what we've actually managed to do here on the spot prices, given that they've traded over the whole weekend. We can just kind of check in with this bearish divergence that we still have on the go, having put in another high there over in the Saturday and Sunday areas, compared to our previous high on the 10th of August, which was higher than the one on the 1st of August. When we look down below, we see a high here, which is then followed up with a lower high, equally across all of these moving averages or oscillators down below. So that is to be taken into consideration. Of course, again here the 21 EMA, if we do go down and visit it, is right in there at that 11,380 area. So there's plenty of reasons where you could see the prices pull back as far as this, even outside of the ascending triangle area, and consider it sort of fake out territory. There would be different ways that you'd look at this beyond that point, as well. If that did happen and it moved back up into it, maybe you'd be considering the wicks on this to be a little bit more sort of substantial in their significance, and perhaps you'll be looking down like this instead. So we can bear these things in mind. Overall, though, it doesn't massively affect the measured move. Just the full one could then take you down to the towards that gap area, that 10,000 area, if they were to do that. And that's while that would be quite shocking, you're only talking like the sorts of moves that we've seen happen fairly frequently in the world of the altcoins and whatnot recently anyway, and we haven't had a huge pullback really as part of this overall bull market that we've been in for the last 6 months since March the 13th. And so whilst this has been going on, it would be interesting to see if that were to happen. One of the things that I would look to, of course, first off, obviously is Ethereum, and I'll be making a video about that after I've finished up here as well. But other things I'd look to, for instance, could be things like how the sort of the traditional markets in America operate when they open up, and will we be seeing this overall have a twin peak scenario to it between our all-time highs that we had just immediately before the crash related to Corona, then on up again, and will we see any more of this happen? Now, of course, in terms of this thing being a bull market and what could happen, if you're just looking at this from a very broad perspective, say I stick it on the weekly, and we look up at this, then you could be looking at this and saying, hey, if we go anywhere down to these areas down below, it's just a higher low overall in terms of putting in our highs and our lows. We did put in a lower low before compared to this one over here on the 17th of December 2018, and that's obviously significant in the sense that if you were to see a bigger overall turnaround in the American markets, then you could be looking at this and saying, well, hey, look, we've got this lower low, and this is ultimately at the minute still a lower high on that. But either way, if you were just to be considering this sort of overall range of this thing and you were to move anywhere amongst it, you're talking like a move up towards 33% downward price action wouldn't be kind of outlandish, although of course it would be very much headline news overall, people would be talking about that all around the world globally. But if that were to translate over to the Bitcoin prices, and we take a look back at our sort of previous bull market that we had over here, then all of these downward chunks as we were sort of making the swing lows and highs on the way up, they were all sort of like 30% downward drops in price action. So that's kind of, again, just brings us up to speed with what we're looking at overall with the prices. There's other things we could be talking about, I suppose, such as on the 24-hour time frame, how the 50 simple moving average is in here at 10,295 and the 200 simples in there at 8,965, both of which could be, tested along the way as part of a bull market. Which I could kind of show examples of, I suppose, at various different times in the past when we've come closer to them. During these moves, maybe not necessarily always the 200 simple as we saw over here on the sort of 16th of July 2017 necessarily, but if we were to go and visit any of these lower down moving averages, such as the 144 that you seem to have come to visit a couple of times in the past in bull markets, then you're looking down towards that 9,550 area, and everything would still overall kind of remain fairly bullish from a macro stance point of view. So there's all of that. There's various other things we could be talking about too, such as where these Fibonacci numbers come in at, such as the 1618, looking at 3,800, things like that. But we've covered everything that we really need to cover in terms of trading this over the next wee while. Looking out for things like whether or not the bearish divergence that we can quite clearly see on the charts actually comes into play. Whether or not things like this peak over here on the DMI add up to being like these other peaks that we've seen in the past, like the one that we had on the 12th of March on the DM negative. You can see the similarity in terms of how that functions, where we came up very high here, almost very similar places. And then other examples include this positive one over here on the 25th of October 2019, where we put in a high, and over here we see this other spike up on the 23rd of September where we put in a low. So there's these things to be bearing in mind, just from the broader term perspective as well. But of course, we're absolutely able to push on past them. Haven't had this recent period of cooling off, take place, which hasn't really seen the prices really contract very much at all. You could see the prices continue to go on up just purely based on the fact that these have had an opportunity to cool off somewhat, such as the RSI coming back down to, which I have, where I have this drawn in as the edge of the bullish control zone. Indeed, if you were to have it drawn in slightly differently, down at 60 instead of 65, then you'd have this coming down and just sort of testing outside of it and coming back into it again, which you would say is positive. So I mean, it depends on your perspective, and we're still in this very, very much bullish area of above 80 on the stochastics, and sort of things like that, and we've not crossed back over as yet. So depending on how the price action goes over the next day or two, could sort of see where the next $500 to $1,000 move could be coming in at and what side that could be happening at. And that's going to do us for today. Now, like I said, I'm aiming for 1,500 subscribers. If you could get be part of that story, that'd be cool. There's a really great Discord there. It's fantastic. The people in there are very, very great. I'm not the center of attention in it. It's nice. Everybody individually is the center of attention on, their own conversations that they're having about stuff. Everybody in there is an independent, self-reliant, resilient trader so far. They come in and if anything, grow towards that rather than sort of move away from it, looking for targets and stuff from people. So it's very, very, very good. And what else can I say, really? Just, thank you so much for tuning in. Just the view alone is something that I massively appreciate. And yeah, share it with your friends. youtube.com/RockyOutcrop. And for the best technical analysis in the world. Okay, catch you next time. Thanks so much. I'll be back again tomorrow. Of course, by the way, I also put out an Ethereum Chainlink Tezos video today as well, so check out those. And there's the most recent video I did last on for a bonus coin was Swipe SXP. Check out those as well. So good stuff. All good. Catch you next time.